All right. Well, I recently started reading the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And to my excitement, the title of the first chapter happens to be Right and Wrong. I saw that and immediately knew I had picked the right book. Now, in this chapter, Lewis makes the interesting point that whether we acknowledge it or not, we all live under a certain set of unwritten rules and laws. Some of these are more obvious than others. I'd like to think that all of us could agree that murder is wrong. But what about something, like that old one and one system that I spoke about when you're merging into traffic? Are we all on board for that, or would some people disagree? While reading the chapter, I found myself thinking about that Curb Your Enthusiasm episode when LD gets annoyed that the lady in front of him takes about 6 free samples at the ice cream window before she even makes her decision and inevitably goes with vanilla. What's the rule on that? If you polled a group of people, something tells me that we'd get a bunch of different answers. Lewis goes on to make the point that that when we personally are victimized by one of these like unwritten rules, it tends to really, really bother us. We get all fired up and typically we can't let it go. But he also flips it around and he points out that we've all broken these same rules at some point in our lives as well. And when we tend to do that, we make excuses for our behavior. We're running late for work, so we ignore the one on one zipper routine and push our way straight through the traffic. Just last week, I was late to get to the studio here to record with the juice box, and he voiced his frustration with me for keeping him waiting. Now, I flipped that thing around and gave him a hard time instead of just owning it. Hence, last week being known as the show that almost wasn't. The takeaway for me is that we just live in a world where, one, we're all worried about what everyone else is doing, and we're not offering enough grace when we're inevitably wronged. And number two, we live in a world with way too much going on, and we need to get back to basics. We need to simplify things a little more. If you peel back the onion far enough and you simplify this thought process, what's the oldest social contract that we have? Could it be those 10 rules, those 10 laws that Moses came down from Mount Sinai with? Believe in God, the one true God. Don't use God's name in vain. Keep holy God's day to worship. Honor your father and your mother. Don't murder anyone. Don't cheat on your spouse. Don't steal. Don't make up lies about the people in your community. Don't covet your neighbor's wife. And don't covet your neighbor's possessions. Seems like we'd be living in a much better world if we could all live our lives according to this social contract. And that's why the 10 Commandments belong in our public schools. And with that being said, I do believe it's time to welcome in our good friend, Mr. Ric Flair, because it's showtime, baby. Woo!
Showtime!